Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. Want to know who I am? If you haven't been here before, press subscribe, press like. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. I bet you when you saw the title, the DC Universe podcast, you expected to see 530 stone guys with mustard stains on their Superman S-Shield t-shirts with one kind of female with purple hair wearing all black complaining, why doesn't Batman give his money to the poor? Why is he just beating up poor villains, right? I bet you that's what you expected. No, I'm the greatest lover on social media. I'm the best looking geezer talking about nerd on social media. And we're going to relax today on this extended video, on this podcast, talking about the issues in DC live action that means something to me. I'm a big DC live action guy. I'm not a comic book guy. I don't read comic books. I've read the odd one, of course, but I don't have the concentration to actually read anything, even though I'm a writer, actor, director, an amateur one, right? I'm actually writing a movie script, which I want to pitch, called Saving Judy Garland, which is a mixture of Life on Mars and Back to the Future. And I'm hoping in the future that this project will launch my bigger ambition, which is my own entertainment television studio, which I'm going to call Movies TV Mad. I think that's a great title. I want to bring entertainment back to you, the people, because watching films growing up, watching television growing up, was a passion of mine. It was fun when I was growing up to watch TV and film. It's not fun anymore, is it? And that's what I want to take back to you, the people. At 15 years old, my father took us all to LA, California, as he had a job at a studio. I know all about the entertainment industry. I trained at RADA, I went to film school. I know a lot about this industry, but just because I know a lot about it doesn't make me always right. So let's get on with this podcast. First of all, I want to talk about your friend of mine, James Gunn. Well, I've never met the guy in my life, by the way. He has responded to me on social media once or twice. There are issues with James Gunn. He does have an ego, and yesterday we saw that ego again. So he was at the Penguin premiere party with his co-CEO of DC Studios, Peter Safran. He said that Penguin is the first DC Studios thing, right? He said that Blue Beetle was the first DC Studios character, but not the first DC Studios film. He says that Creature Commandos is the first DC Studios project. Everything's the first DC Studios project or character. At this point, if you're not confused, you should be, because, as I say, I know this industry very well, and I'm confused at this stage. Anyway, he said this, which sums up James Gunn. He said that him and Peter were involved in the making of the Penguin. They tried to put their two penn'orth in to make it better. In the same sentence, he said he allowed Matt Reeves and his team, basically stood out the way and let Matt Reeves and his team do their thing. Well, James, it's either one or the other. Either you put your two penn'orth in to make it better, or you got out their way. It sounds like someone, if this thing is hated by the fans, he can say, well, we allowed Matt Reeves to do whatever he wanted, but if it's good, he can get some of the credit, right? Now, he was involved in The Flash. He interfered with The Flash. Did he make the Flash movie better? No. He interfered with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Did he make it better? No, he made it worse. We've heard from many people on that production that it was going to be a very different movie, and in the end it was cut down. And I can watch Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and kind of enjoy it because Jason, who is a brilliant, diverse Aquaman, Aquaman was a joke before Zack Snyder got in casting Jason Momoa. That first Aquaman movie is amazing. Aquaman is amazing in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Jason's personality and character, what about the address to the UN? I was expecting in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom to see something amazing. You know, do you remember Christopher Reeve playing Superman in Superman for the Quest for Peace, and Superman actually addressing the UN? Now, Superman for the Quest for Peace is deemed a shit Superman movie. I don't think it is. I think it's a movie with the budget taken away, which created issues. It made it look cheap in places, and visually it didn't look as good as the other movies. But in fact, it has a very tight, emotional story. The address to the UN sums up Reeves' Superman, why he's the best. It's not just that he looks like Superman, mostly compared to all the other guys who have played Superman, and they're not bad. But Christopher Reeve looked like Superman. But it's the majestic way he played Superman. He really has dialogue. He really takes control. You know, he is who Superman should be in every way. You've got that brilliant sequence in Superman 4 as well, when Clark is dating Lacey Warfield, but Superman is on a double date with them as he dates Lois Lane and interviews her in her apartment. It's hilarious, it's brilliant. I don't mind Nuclear Man in that film. I think still that Nuclear Man footprint effect is actually quite revolutionary and still looks cool today. So even though Superman 4 has its problems, it may be a better film than Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Not visually, of course. So James Gunn and Peter Safran didn't even promote Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. They kept very, very quiet. But it's clear that James Wan, one of the best directors out there, wasn't happy with his interference. After I saw the first Aquaman film, I did a review, one of my first reviews on this channel. And I said this was Star Wars underwater. I said that James should take over Star Wars, but they would never let a competent person work on Star Wars because they would make it good. James Wan has now left Warner Brothers, right? This is a studio on the brink of bankruptcy, and they've lost one of their best directors because they fucked with him, right? Yes, I'm not a shill, I'm not a flag waver. If you're new, please, as I say, please press subscribe because I'm into the real talk, right? So anyway, James Gunn kind of takes credit for the Penguin, then doesn't take credit for the Penguin. It sums him up, really. And this is the problem with James Gunn. Here's the truth. Penguin happens with or without DC Studios and James Gunn and Peter Safran. That was set in motion before them. The Batman 2 happens without James Gunn and Peter Safran. I'm sure he's going to try and take credit and not take credit for the Batman 2, again saying him and Peter tried to make it better. Imagine being Lauren LaFranc, the showrunner of Penguin, right? And you just read a social media post saying, from James Gunn, saying me and Peter tried to make it better. But at the same time, we stood out their way and let them do their job. I'm sure behind the scenes, Lauren will be very pissed off. No creative is going to like that. It's a bit like Joey Tribbiani in Friends when he's got an interview for Reader's Digest. And he goes, you know, sometimes he puts his own lines in and then the writer decides to kill him off. Hilarious, but these are things that happen in the entertainment industry. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. Take it from someone who knows. So the Batman 2 and Penguin would have happened anyway. Now let's go to Mr. Matt Reeves. Now, people love Matt Reeves. To a point, I love Matt Reeves, but directors today are like used car salespeople. James Gunn sums it up himself, and Matt Reeves is no better. You're hearing a lot of talk about the Batman 3. It is my belief that the Batman 3 will never happen, ever. But they're promoting Penguin, and they will say anything to get you to watch Penguin. Now, I'm able to watch Penguin as of tomorrow. Is it Thursday? I don't know when I'm recording this. This will go out on a Friday, so that'll be the day I can watch Penguin. This is where I am. I'm not going to be a slave to anything DC as much as I love it. I will watch episode 1. If I love it, I'll keep on watching it and reviewing it on this channel. If I hate it, I'm sorry guys and girls and everyone else, I won't continue talking about it. I am suspicious about the Penguin that is a bait and switch, that it's all about Sophia Capone basically making a mockery out of the Penguin, manipulating him, using him. Make no mistake, Matt Reeves is very woke. What are you talking about, Mick? He's not woke. Yes, he is. Let's talk about the Batman and its white racism, right? The opening of the movie has a gang of white hoodlums with one black kid who seems to have doesn't really want to be there, but he's there somehow. They beat up this guy. Is it an Asian guy, right? Yeah. More wokeness, right? But the black kid doesn't get involved. Even when Batman comes along, the black kid's there and he just runs away. He's just innocent, right? Propaganda and extremism. Lots of white racism in the Batman. You know, the policeman, you know, the white policemen are bad. The white politician is bad. But the black politician trying to become mayor is the hero. She's going to change everything. More propaganda and extremism. Now, I love the Batman. I think it's a great movie. That moment when he goes down to the surface level where people are drowning. It's a beautiful moment. Batman realizing that he's been like the people he's been fighting. He's not being Batman and he needs to become something else. I think that's brilliant by Reeves. And I still don't think the Batman is one of the best Batman films out there. Big fan of Batman Begins, big fan of Batman Returns. Batman vs. Superman, also a great Batman movie as well as a Superman movie. Not everyone's cup of tea, but it is mine. I still believe that Batman vs. Superman should have been, you know, the Dark Knight Returns kind of faithful adaptation, and I think people would have welcomed that a lot more than what they got. But there you have it. They don't really like faithful adaptations, do they, in Hollywood? I mean, Zack Snyder, who I love, is very, very woke. The difference between Zack Snyder's wokeness and the reason I tolerate it, at least when he represents women, they've either got superpowers or they've got training. Fiora has got training and superpowers in Man of Steel. So you can see why she can beat the shit out of Superman and other human beings. It makes sense, right? Even in something like Alias, you know, Sydney Bristow has training. She's around 6 foot. She's a tall woman. She can take care of herself. You get why she can beat up other men. It makes sense. Best thing about that show, she beats up men and women, which it seems to be illegal for women to fight women these days as well as men. But never mind, another subject for another time. So I don't see the Batman 3 happening. I do see Matt Reeves getting a lot of woke kind of the Batman spin-offs on Max. I think that's the way it's going to go. He's going to be reduced to spin-offs on Max because here's the problem. You can't have two Batmen. Gunn is developing a Brave and the Bold movie, which, according to him, he hasn't cast. No one's writing it. He's got a director in Andres Muschietti, who directed the Flash movie. Still don't think he's ever going to direct that movie. We'll see what happens. So you're dealing with con artists here. They will tell you anything, so to suck you in. And, you know, here's the real issue here. Now, I want to look on my piece of paper, because when I've got more than one thing to talk about, I forget. I'll forget my own name in a minute. So let's have a look. So we've spoken about James Gunn. We've spoken about Matt Reeves. I want to talk about Matt Reeves, actually. I want to continue to talk about Matt Reeves. Yeah. Matt Reeves has made an abundance of excuses why Robert Pattinson's Batman isn't in Penguin. It'll be a nice surprise if he is, but they've been pretty honest that he's not. Now, there's two issues here, by the way. One is that they admitted that the Penguin storyline from the streaming show was actually meant to be the first act of the Batman 2, but they decided, right, to make it into a series. So it was obviously going to be cut down for the first act. Think about this. Let this sink in. Something that probably would have only lasted for, what, half an hour at most, right? I mean, how long is a first act of a movie? I don't know. Anyway, wouldn't have lasted very long. Is being stretched out, what, for 8 episodes? That's ridiculous, just so they can prop up a struggling streaming service. It's crazy. Streaming has killed entertainment as much as wokeness has. Make no mistake about it. I hate streaming. I mean, I'm a big fan of Netflix. I think they do a great job giving us variety and stuff like that. But the studio's trying to destroy Netflix, trying to take the streaming game, hasn't worked. And this is what happens. You get cheap shows like The Penguin. If The Penguin was a proper original story, why couldn't it have been in the movie theatres this year, put together as a movie instead of a streaming show? The production values from what we've seen in promos and trailers, it looks like a movie anyway, right? But it's interesting that Matt Reeves has said it was supposed to be the first act of the Batman 2. So they've taken something and stretched it out for streaming. I do believe The Penguin is a bait and switch. I think it's Sophia Capone's story. I think she's the main character. Lauren LaFranc, the showrunner, a female showrunner, said she wanted to represent a strong woman. Don't forget, this woman comes out of Arkham Asylum. She's obviously some kind of villain. She's obviously done bad things. She's obviously a bad person. But, you know, Lauren LaFranc wants to probably blame her father. Now, this is interesting. Because I'm a bit confused here. So, Mark Strong has been recast. No, Mark Strong is replacing the original actor for that character. What's his name? Is it Capone? What's the guy? You see, I told you I'm crap with names. You know the villain, right, from the first film. He was played by one actor. Now he's being played by Mark Strong. I was under the impression that that character died. Have I got something wrong here? Am I missing something? But then there's another situation with the Penguin and all of that. So they're not calling him Oswald Cobblepot anymore. They're calling him Cobb. Oswald Cobb. Why? What's all that about? What are you doing? Do you really think Cobblepot isn't a good name, or that we don't have the attention to hear the name Cobblepot? Or is it because the creators' families of Oswald Cobblepot want some royalties, so they're shortening down the name? I don't get it. And I haven't listened to their bullshit explanations. And I want to go back to Matt Reeves making excuses why Robert Pattinson's The Batman isn't in this, right? And he said it didn't make sense to the story, would betray the Penguin's story. Fine with Sophia Capone betraying the Penguin's story, right? But anyway, the reason Robert Pattinson isn't in it, because Robert Pattinson is expensive. And you can't use the Batman contract to have him on a streaming show. Because of unions, because of union rules. So they would have to give him a new contract. He's an A-list actor, right? That new Mickey movie, Mickey whatever it is, right, looks fucking good, by the way. But he would have been very expensive. They have lower budgets for streaming shows. That's the real reason that Robert Pattinson's The Batman isn't in The Penguin. But they have to give you a bullshit explanation because they know you're not going to be happy. You may not watch because Robert Pattinson's The Batman isn't in Penguin. Now, do you have to have Robert Pattinson's The Batman in this? Listen, it's the Penguin story. I very much think it's okay for the Batman not to be in it. But here's the thing. It's his universe. It's his world. You could have created something just so we see him. Like Deadpool and Wolverine shows us how much people like appearances of characters they love, played by actors they love. Batman should have appeared somehow. But that's the problem when you're dealing with streaming. It would have been very cool to insert Batman into this. And in terms of the story, it's not important, but for the fans, we would have loved to have seen Robert Pattinson's Batman. Now, I think we're going to talk about David Cornswept now. Let me make sure that I haven't missed anything out. I haven't. Look, I could be here all day talking about all these DC issues. Listen, it will be easy for me to sit here and bullshit you for half an hour waving a flag. Oh yeah, James Gunn, it's all going to be great, right? But I don't believe that. I've said before, I don't know if Superman's going to be a great movie or not. I'm on the fence. 50% of me thinks this could be a really interesting, great movie. The other side of me is very worried that he's loosely adapting All-Star Superman, that Superman's probably going to be dying for the whole movie. I don't like the costume, but I think we haven't seen the full story about the costume yet. That's why I'm willing to take a step back from my hatred of that costume, because it is grotesque. Make no mistake, that costume is fucking grotesque. Interesting, very interesting that, they bought this Christopher Reeve documentary. As you know, I've seen it, it's wonderful, but it doesn't tell us anything we don't already know. The family side of it is things we've never seen before. The Robin Williams element is great as well. But Gunn and Safran, again, taking the attention, was there. Something very interesting happened at the photo shoot. They had our brand new Superman Clark Kent, David Corenswet, standing next to Christopher Reeve's son, Will Reeve, who will cameo in James Gunn's Superman film as a newscaster. And it's very, very telling that Will looks more like Superman than David Corenswet does. So I've kind of hinted about this before. I think David is a brilliant actor. In terms of acting, I think he's going to do one of the best jobs since Christopher Reeve, if Gunn gives him the material, and you never know. But in terms of looks, I don't think that Corenswet looks anything like Superman. It's interesting because Corenswet apparently is the tallest guy to ever play Superman, I think, or something like that. But he doesn't look tall when he's photographed. It's interesting, really. I mean, since Christopher Reeve, they're tall, but they don't look very tall because it's all about how you photograph people. Now, when Will Reeve is towering over him, it makes the situation even worse. Now, I think maybe Will Reeve is now a bit too old to play Superman. I don't know how old Will is. Is he 40? I don't know how old he is, but I'm surprised. Now, I know Will's not really an actor, but I'm surprised that no one approached Will ever to play Superman. I'm not suggesting that James Gunn should have cast Will Reeve to play Superman and Clark Kent, but he looks like his fucking dad. Sorry, Chris. I love you, Christopher Reeve. I didn't mean to say fucking dad. I love Christopher Reeve. He is the best Superman, and the only person ever to get close to that is definitely Henry Cavill. But I think Henry Cavill and Brandon Routh were better casting choices looks-wise than David Corenswet. David Corenswet was fan casting, but I don't really think he looks that much like Superman. Yes, he has dark hair, and that's about it. As I say, as an actor, David is brilliant. I like the way he uses dialogue. I like the way he says dialogue. I think he's a very, very good actor, and I respect that. But I think looks-wise, there were better people to cast as Superman. Also, I think at 30, I think he's too old to play this character in a trilogy. But this is why I'm suspicious that they might kill him off, or Gunn may kill him off at the end of this movie. It's why Gunn originally called this film Superman Legacy. And the reason he cut the legacy off the title is because people started to become suspicious. Meaning me. You know, I've done loads of videos with my suspicions about this. We don't know what kind of contract Corenswet has got. So it's going to be very, very interesting what this film does and what this film is about, because nobody actually knows what this film is actually going to be. Nobody. He's been very secretive. At this stage, we knew exactly what Superman Returns was going to be. Brian was very forthcoming about what the movie was going to be. Full synopsis. Superman's been away for 5 years. It's a sequel to Superman 2. And Lois Lane has moved on with her life, also writing an article, Why the World Doesn't Need Superman. Brian and, his writers were very, very transparent about what the film was going to be. There was no secrets. We knew this was a continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman, right? We knew everything. Same with Man of Steel. We knew that Zod was going to be in it. A lot of us moaned about that. I complained that they were using Zod again, because I didn't know how brilliant Michael Shannon's Zod was going to be and how David S. Goyer was going to change the game with General Zod in this movie. So we all complained, but we knew that Zod was going to be in it. We knew that this was going to be a more realistic take on Superman, that this was going to be as Superman Begins. We knew David S. Goyer hated the idea of kryptonite, so we knew kryptonite wasn't going to be used in Man of Steel, and we knew it was going to be a first contact alien invasion story. We knew exactly what those films were going to be. Now, I'm not saying we have to know, but there's a difference between being secretive so we're not spoiled and being secretive because you're up to something that we don't like or we may not like. I'm going to make a very unpopular statement. I believe that James Gunn's Superman will be just as controversial, if not more controversial, than Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman put together. I think this is going to be a controversial movie because people see James Gunn as this white knight, this guy who knows how to make a comic book movie. Colourful, fun, funny, and he gets Superman. No. As I said at the end of yesterday's videos, he doesn't like tier 1 superheroes. As I said, he proved that with the Justice League arriving too late in the series finale of Peacemaker and everything that Peacemaker says about those characters throughout the series and the way he talks to Aquaman as well. Excuse me, clear my throat. But yeah, James Gunn isn't really a fan of Superman or Batman. He likes characters like Plastic Man and Peacemaker and lower characters, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but when you've got someone writing and directing a Superman movie, but he's not particularly that big a fan of the top tier characters, that's the problem. Because he's bringing in lesser tier characters to be with Superman in this movie. Does that mean he will try and make the other characters look better than Superman? Is this a film about Superman or the lesser tier characters? Because he's good at that, isn't he? There's no question. He's good at having films, CBMs, about lower tier characters in groups and building them up. That's his strength. The problem is, that's all he's ever done. But this is Superman, baby, as I keep on saying. This is top tier. And people will want to see a great Superman story. There's no Jor-El at this point. There's no Lara. There's no Krypton. There's no origin story. A lot of people happy that James Gunn isn't having an origin story in this film. But what about normies? What about the general audience who don't really know Superman? Is Superman relevant enough in the modern day to kick off a whole universe of movies, TV, gaming, and television? Is he relevant enough? Is he popular enough with the mainstream audience? No. Can you make him relevant enough and popular enough? Well, Smallville did it. They took a character that was becoming jaded and not very relevant to the audience, and by the end of the Smallville's run, there was people who never liked Superman who loved Superman. You know, Al Miles, the creators and showrunners of Smallville for 7 seasons, took a situation and they brought a new generation of viewers and made them Superman fans. No one's ever done that. I mean, I think Man of Steel brought in people who never would have liked Superman before. Because he's really different in the Snyderverse, isn't he? So I think Snyder did that as well. So I think James Gunn's Superman movie is a controversial movie. I think a lot of people are going to be upset by this film and what it does. I don't think this is a film that's just going to be colourful and funny. I think it's going to do things with Superman that hardcore Superman fans won't like. Now, the reputation of Gunn in this movie is that he's going to fix, not that I think it needs fixing, big fan of the Snyderverse, but that he's going to fix the things Snyder apparently got wrong. That's the reputation. And he's definitely going to make it funnier. It's going to be more colourful. But I think that this is a film that will be controversial. That's my prediction. You can clip this and take it to the bank. James Gunn's Superman is going to be a lot more controversial than you people think. The controversy will be very different to the Snyderverse's controversy, but it will be controversial. And let me repeat myself again. If he's stupid enough to kill off Superman so Supergirl can replace him, I mean, I still think he may, because I think they're dealing with cloning in this movie, and I think Connor Kent may replace Superman by the end of this movie. And I've spoken about this before. Is it good? Well, I want to see Superman in a DC Universe franchise. But the other half of me thinks, well, yeah, I suppose that could be cool, but I don't know. But Supergirl replacing Superman's mantle is a huge problem. So I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. This has been the DC Universe podcast. If you subscribe via watching this, if I get loads of likes and loads of views for this video, I'll do another one. I have really enjoyed talking DC with all of you today. Until I see you again, goodbye. You won't switch off now. This is the problem, right? Cheap PC, 50 quid HD camera, and it won't even switch off, right? Anyway, lovely having your company. I'll see you again soon. Now I'm really going to smash it. 1, 2, 3.